Before organized crime, even the syndicates took hold of things. Organized crime in New York City, actually Philadelphia, Chicago, was run by gangs, these massive, usually ethnic street gangs. This is before the massive arrival of the Italians. So the gangs were Irish, Jewish, Yankee, American gangs. One of the biggest in New York City was the Eastman gang. And what they did was rent themselves out under their boss, Monk Eastman, who was a war hero, believe it or not, World War One. Monk Eastman would go to Tammany Hall, which was a dominant political machine in New York, and he'd say, look, we'll bust heads for you. We'll, whatever it is you want, that you don't want the cops to do, we'll do it for you. And that's how he made his living. They'd also work for unions. Well, they'd work against unions. It depends on how much they were paid. One of the members of this thing was called Louie Vach, Cyclone Louie, and he worked under Kid Twist Zwerbach. Kid Twist, guess where he got the name. So Louie, a long time ago on Coney Island, and actually my mother remembers some of these places. They survived for a while. There were tents, and they were open all year round. You can go in there, and had freak shows, for lack of, see the man with three eyes, a lady who had a beard, and so forth. So Louie had a tent, and he would take iron bars and he'd twist them around his neck and his arm. Hey, I'd like to see that. I'd pay for that. It's a living, right? So Monk Eastman, the boss Eastman, goes to jail in 1904, and it leaves this huge vacuum. Richie Fitzpatrick is a pretty tough gangster, and he's got Tammany Hall behind him, and he wants leadership. Kid Twist wants leadership. They don't fight, but they break off into fractions. Fitzpatrick started a infamous bar on the Bowery called the Dump, or the cops called it the Morgue. It was where panhandlers and petty criminals met and divvied up their goods and all that sort of thing. It was a scary place. When Fitzpatrick died when he was killed. Peg Leg Flynn took over. I guess we'll figure out what happened to old Peg Leg. And then in 1900, Tom Lee, the unofficial mayor of Chinatown, took over. If you have a chance, read about Tom Lee. He's an interesting guy. He led the On Leong tong, the one fraction of the Chinese mafia. And what they did in New York is an amazing story. Let me spell it for you. On, Leong, tong, Tong. Look it up. I have a very good book about it here someplace. So the feud comes to a head November 1, 1904. They agree to have a peace conference on Sheriff Street Saloon on Christie Street. Fitzpatrick shows up. He realizes, oh my God, this is a setup, and he tries to run for it. And this guy, Harry Dahl, who works under Kid Twist, blows him away in the middle of the street. People see it. Nothing happens. So when he's gone, Cyclone Louie decides he'll kill everyone else who was with the Fitzpatrick fraction. So they're more or less in charge now. The Kid Twist is in charge. But the troubles continue. So there was something called a 5 Points gang. The Eastmans were their opponents. So Zwerbach and Louie get into a fist fight with this guy called Louie the Lump Biaggi, Bioggi. Biaggi is a member of the 5 Points, and there was a fight over a girl, of course. Carol Terry was a minor celebrity. She came from Canada, and she would sing, and she was very pretty and all this. And she was appearing at a big hall in Coney Island. She was what they called a dancehall girl. Anyway, she's seeing both of these clowns, the Lump and the Twist, at the same time, secretly. One thing has to, at one point, in other words, one time he came in, and Kid Twist comes in, he finds him, and finds the Lump with her, and he makes the Lump jump out a window out of a bar on Coney Island. And so the Lump takes this very seriously. He doesn't like being thrown out of windows. And he goes and sees Paul Kelly, the leader. And Paul Kelly, who was an Italian despite the name, Paul Kelly gave rise to Frankie Yale, Al Capone, Johnny Torrio. So he says, yeah, all right, let's kill the guy. Let's get it over with. May 14, 1908, the Kid Twist and Louie, they go to watch Carol Terrell's show at the Imperial Theater on Coney Island. It's a famous, you should know, the famous theater, the Imperial Theater on Coney Island. So they're watching this. Afterwards, they agree to meet up with her and Carol brings one of her girlfriends, Mabel Leon, and the four of them, they want to go to an Italian cafe on Ocean Walk down the road from the theater. So they leave. It's around 8 o'clock at night. They're walking by there, and they didn't see Louie the Lump until it was too late. He was hiding behind it, and he jumped out in front of him. It was dark, in all fairness, and he clubbed Carol to the ground, the woman, Carol Terry, to the ground, and then he beat the other woman, and then he opened fire on Kid Twist and Louie, and he shot them both dead immediately. 6 bullets. He didn't miss a shot. They managed to crawl to a hotel doorway, but it didn't. Terry, also the woman, was also struck during all of this. A cop showed up. He fired at the cop, just hit his helmet. Louie the Lump took off. He was arrested in Saybrook, Connecticut, where he went on hiding and all that. They downgraded. So anyway, now he's the dominant guy. So by the time it comes to trial, the Eastmans are falling apart. They break off into little fractions, and they're not what the 5 Point Gang is under Kelly. So the politicians arranged for the whole thing. It's downgraded to manslaughter without choice and so forth. He gets a sentence of 11 months, and he says, Louie goes, I could do that standing on my head. And I don't even think he served the full 11 months.